For anyone listening, if you use dating apps, delete them. Get off of them. They're not helping you.
Go outside. Go outside.
Outside.
Find the people that you're interested in and go and do the things they do. Like when I was when I would live in Bali, I would go, I like spirity, yoga, relaxed people. So I would go to classes, but specifically classes that would have some sort of partner element. So an acro yoga class or a handstand class. And so you can turn up, if you see someone you like, when they need a partner to support so they don't fall on their face, you can be like, oh, hey, do you want to partner up?
Today, I am here with a amazing friend, a brilliant man, Connor McCreesh, and we have had endless conversations about probably most topics under the sun. And I always feel, I don't know if I've actually ever told you this, but I feel in a lot of our conversations that they should be recorded because they're
Mm-hmm.
so interesting and we go really deep. And so, yeah, I'm super excited to actually record one of our conversations today, and I'm super grateful that you are here to also help me with what I'm working on in my mission. So, yeah, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks. Pleasure to be here. I also feel like most things I say are so great they should be recorded. So I feel you.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. That tracks. So, we have talked a little bit about what we want to go into today. And before we jump into
Mm-hmm.
it, is there anything that you want to share for the audience, for anyone listening, a little bit more about yourself and your relationship to relationships, dating, that kind of area?
Sure. I'm a long-time nomad. I'm trying to settle down traveling around, but that's been happening for about 7 years. Run my own companies because I'm apparently incapable of working for someone else. And also a long-time relationship. I've spent probably, I don't know, at least 12 years 11, at least 11, 12 years in relationships. I've got a lot of experience in relationships and out of them. And sometimes when I was in the relationships, I begrudged being in them and not having the experience to be single. But now with the perspective, I'm like, thank fucking God. I speak to so many men who their longest relationship is maybe a year. Sometimes it's 6 months. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're doing because you haven't spent several years with a person figuring out the lessons that you're forced to figure out doing these things. So I feel lucky to have experienced a lot of both of these sides. Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
good about that time, about those wasted years. I now feel good about.
a, a side note here, but may be of interest to you or anyone listening around wasting time. So, Alison Armstrong, I was listening to something of hers the other day, and she was talking about how women, they view, because we have this biological clock, they view
Mm-hmm.
time spent in a relationship that doesn't actually end up being the father of their children
Mm-hmm.
or their lifelong partner as wasted time more often
Mm-hmm.
than not. And men, you guys are so much better at living in the moment and appreciating the moment for what it is or what it's teaching you or the joy or whatever it might be. And
Mm-hmm.
that women, yeah, like actually view the
Mm-hmm.
relationships that didn't work that time as wasted time, which is really interesting. Hmm.
How about a counterpoint to that for the avoidant men who have been scarred by rejection and now are scared to reject the girl they're with and can feel the pressure of the wasted time coming from the women, and that makes it harder to break up. And maybe it'll be easier to break up after 4 years than after three, or after 5 years than after four. Doesn't get any easier, only gets harder. Only more dreams and fantasies of the future are destroyed. So yeah, that can You can trap yourself in a lot of wasted time by not just trusting your intuition.
Yeah. Speaking from experience, are we, Connor?
Just all of it, all of the experience. Yep. I've seen this pattern many times.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting how, especially if your intuition is super clear and you know that this, if you're in a relationship and it's not the right one, that to
Mm-hmm.
me is where I consider wasted time. And I'm like, "Ah, I've done it too. I've also been the avoidant. And yeah, that's really interesting. Hmm.
I had my longest relationship was 7 years, and I'm pretty sure 3 or 4 years into that, I was like, I know this isn't the one. This is not what I want. And just, yeah, she was so in love and clingy. I'm sure she wouldn't describe it
Attached.
as clingy, but attached. She was very attached. And yeah, I couldn't do it. And then absolutely, and then I'll constantly be surprised that when that feeling comes up that it isn't right, and I would ignore it. And then when I'd bring up a breakup, it's just over. It's over so fast. You're like, I can't believe it. You feel like maybe there's going to be, no, it'll fight and things will keep bouncing back and forth. But sometimes you just, oh, it's just over. It's just done. Oh, wow, that was not that hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting because sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You really helped me a lot through my last breakup. And yeah, that was easy, but then it just felt, even though it was clear, like it was easy in the sense that it was clear this is over and that was that. It still wasn't a clean
Mm-hmm.
break. It was messy. It was like a little
Mm-hmm.
messy for a couple
Mm-hmm.
months. And I was like, huh, yeah. But I guess
Mm-hmm.
also the more entangled you are with somebody else in your lives, then that probably
Mm-hmm.
is a contributing factor. But
I got lucky. My first proper relationship ended and then became entangled and got messy and got so horribly, creepily, terribly messy that from a young age, I was like, okay, if I break up with something, not like there can be nothing else. No, with my last girlfriend, I was like, okay, friendship's still fine. I feel up to that. But the one before that, I was like, nothing, no contact, no friendship, no chance of drunken hookups and entanglement and these feelings or anything like that. I was just like, no, I've seen where this goes. It's not pretty.
we've all been there for sure. Well, maybe not everyone.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't, then that's amazing.
Done.
But I think most of us can resonate. Yeah. Oof. Okay, so on this note of all of your experience in relationships, we are talking
Mm-hmm.
about how uh they can look so different. And right now, there's a lot of conversation around masculinity. There's this whole like toxic
Mm-hmm.
masculinity. There's also toxic
Mm-hmm.
femininity. And how do we approach relationships in our modern world with love, respect, compassion, maintaining polarity? And like, how do we achieve this is really what we're out to discover. And I know, like, for me personally, in my relationships, the way that I've shifted and the way that I show up drastically changes the type of man or woman that I
Mm-hmm.
attract. And I've been testing myself through those experiences as to what feels most authentic to me at, as an individual, and then also what kind of partner do I want to attract as well. And yeah, so I'm curious about your experiences with that. And then also in terms of what in others and this whole masculine, feminine shifting those dynamics. And yeah, from that perspective.
In a relationship or prior to a relationship, where would you like to start?
Mm. Well, what maybe prior to a relationship? I don't know. Based on I want to hear both. So wherever your thought processes are taking you, just give it to me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very personal one, and sometimes it's hard for me to take myself out of it, right? Like I'm just quite a masculine person. Like I like adrenaline, risk taking, these kind of uh, things, and so that comes very normal to me. From lots of past experience, fight training, and these kind of things, don't feel unsafe. Like I don't feel unsafe almost ever, and so these are things that it's hard for me to strip out of the equation.
Well, I don't think you need to. Like, share about your own experience. Also, I'm going to make the argument that there are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
aspects about you that are actually quite feminine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think I've certainly the masculine has always been fine, and a younger me has been too much. Like on my school report card, the most common word that would come back was arrogant, as excess confidence. And so dialing that back into real grounded confidence and not arrogance. And so, yeah, for me, it has been about maintaining the good of my masculinity and trying to remove or tamp down where that goes wrong. And yeah, I guess for the feminine side, the communication, intuition, understanding myself better, all of these kind of things, those did not come easy. In fact, that first relationship I said that was super messy, like when that happened, before the messiness, but when it ended, like I made this conscious choice where I was like, I don't like feelings. They're useless. I'm going to turn them off. And for many years, I actively thought, this is great. This was a great idea. I love this. This is working super well. And then during my time at university, this just blows up into depression because I'm completely disconnected from my intuition, from what my body is telling me, all of those things. So that was a real kind of push to be like, I need to understand me. I need to get what's going on. So then it's been easy for me to focus on that because so much overtly masculine stuff, I'm like, that's fine. I've got that. I'm not worried about being too feminine. I would just very much struggle to see that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't often, like my frame for these isn't masculine, feminine when I'm thinking about them. I'm never thinking I need to work on my feminine side more. I need to work on my masculine side more. That's never my aim or objective.
Well,
I'm just trying to work on me more.
totally. And I would actually, okay, so maybe I'll frame it this way, is
Mm-hmm.
I think that right now you are in a relationship with probably the most feminine woman that you've ever been with.
Yep.
And I'm curious how that feels, and if you feel the difference in that, and if you feel like you're able to step more into your like masculine and holding that structure and holding that kind of the
Mm-hmm.
masculine pole of that safety, security structure
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways for her, or in that container in a way that maybe you haven't before. And if you're also being more filled up and
Mm-hmm.
nourished because of her feminine energy in a way that
Mm-hmm.
you haven't before, right? And then the attraction that goes with it. Yeah. Tell me about how that's going.
That's going fantastically. Yeah, but it's for me, I don't see the difference as my past relationships didn't work out because these people weren't feminine enough or I wasn't masculine enough. And this one is working because she's feminine. This one is working because for the first time in my life, I picked somebody. And I was able to pick somebody because I had spent years and years fucking figuring out my intuition and those signs and getting a fuck yes from my body and trusting that and not questioning that and going there. And so
Yeah.
if anything, I don't know if that's a more feminine trait that had led me to that. But once I felt that, I was very much sprung into action with all the whirlwind romance and charm I could possibly muster. Yeah, so, but do we work because she's more feminine? There are lots of feminine traits I could think of that she could have and doesn't, and if she did have those, I wouldn't like her. She's very chill.
Yeah.
She's not anxious at all. That is the main thing that is so delightful about her. Nothing about her feels like it is clawing at my time and trying to suck my time away. And that that is what I very often attract. And the first relationship, I got dumped in a way that was just like I was just felt mortified and rejected so badly that I've had this problem. I've had this problem with rejection. And so when I don't like someone and they're super clingy in my past relationships and are very attached, then it's so hard for me to be like, I just don't like you. I didn't choose you. Go. We fell into this. I didn't want to fall into this. It just happened. I just spent all this time wanting to just choose, just feel like I made a decision. I was like, who the fuck is this? I'm incredibly attracted. I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah.
And that hadn't happened before. And for me, that was the big difference. And with my past relationship, my ex-girlfriend, also ex-business partner, still best friend with matching tattoos. She has a lot of masculine energy. I didn't think that was the problem. I think the problem was just I didn't really want to be with her. I didn't really see a future with her. And every time those feelings came up, I would rationalize some sort of way that it could work. And I think about, well, she's ticking all of these boxes that I thought I wanted. And then I would feel fine for a few months. And then the feelings would start to come back. This isn't right. I don't want to be with her. This doesn't make sense. And things would get rocky. And I come up with another story or way that it could be fixed. And that happened a few times until I ran out of rationalizations. I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. We need to finish this. Yeah, I think my ex was just wasn't right for me. It just didn't. And maybe that's like a helpful thing to think about is much of my growth in relationships, but also in just many areas of life, has been I decided these things that I wanted from life and a partner and all of these things when I was a teenager and had zero experience to back up any of these being true. And then just successively achieving these things and being like, that wasn't it. I'm not eternally happy. I think I was bargaining with myself that I would be. And it was the same with a partner. My ex, I had these boxes. She ticked the boxes. I realized these boxes weren't nearly as important as I thought. And then I started to place emphasis on how does it feel to be with someone? Does it feel nice? Do I feel relaxed? Do I feel loved and given the space that I need? And whatever it is that I actually wanted, it's another intuition thing. I started paying attention to what actually feels good instead of what am I thinking? Because when I'm thinking, I've got this puzzle partially assembled for my life and how my life should be. And I'm trying to find people that fit into that puzzle. And if they don't quite fit, well, you're like, well, it's close enough. And you try to fucking jam the piece in and it doesn't work. And so, yeah, after the last relationship, I really decided I'm just going to get rid of all of that. I'm going to fucking stop thinking about the future so tightly, which I had at 15 years old. I made this big list of ambitions, one into the next. And I'm like, if I do these, then my life will be purposeful. Otherwise, I will have wasted my life. And it took a long time to shake that off and just be like, who feels nice? Who makes me happy? Who am I intensely physically attracted to? And all of these other things. And I found someone. And it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. I think there are obviously so many factors that go into whether or not you're a good fit with someone. And I think it is a super individual question. I think we all have different criteria. I also think masculine and feminine is certainly one way to look at it, and a way
Mm-hmm.
to look at, yeah, like different dynamics that form, polarity, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But it
Mm-hmm.
is just a
Mm-hmm.
piece. And actually, I'm wondering where you think you fall on this spectrum. So, my boyfriend and I were talking about this the other day, that we think that there's a spectrum in how people approach relationships. And on one end is
Mm-hmm.
purely transactional. So you
Mm-hmm.
basically choose a partner for what you're
Mm-hmm.
getting out of it, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
it. Or on the other side is pure love. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone falls somewhere on this spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that, of course, how you choose a partner where you are on this spectrum is also going to dictate, like, very much whether you can go fully with intuition, or whether
Mm-hmm.
you want to be a little bit more intentional about what you're getting out of a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So, where do you think
Mm-hmm.
you fall on this spectrum?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts on your framing.
Okay,
First,
give it to me.
uh, with the one, the love side, that's a feeling, that's emotion, that's a something, and the what are you getting out of it is also, it's all just feelings, right? Everything we do is literally at the end just comes down to a feels some way or feels another kind of way. I certainly, yeah, and then my other thought is, and this is where I've gone wrong before, and this was a big lesson for me, was assuming you today knows what you in 5, 10 years will want can be a big ask. So if you're on the more thinking of someone that's a fit where you're like, I want someone that runs their own businesses or any of these external things they do instead of the I think it's perfectly fine to have the intrinsic characteristics behind someone that does those things, right? Like you might like someone that is a risk taker or learns is constantly learning and growing and these kind of things. But I think the trouble can be when you set, it has been for me at least, when I set these specific things in my mind. No, I was like, I need to date some science or engineering graduate, super smart girl who's also a CEO, who's also a fitness model, and all like the Venn diagram of people in the world is getting smaller and smaller. And I was just like, fuck, what am I doing? I'm torturing myself. So yeah, I don't know where I would lie on your spectrum. I guess maybe at the moment, 100% on the love side. Like I am really very much trying to not think about even just where this is going. What I'm trying to practice every single day is I choose you today. I like you today. I'm going to uh, put in the effort as if this will continue forever. But if someday I don't choose her or she doesn't choose me, then that's fine. Like I have no, I'm not constructing a future for us and trying to drive in that way, which if that's what your non-love side represents, then I would be away from that unless I'm
Yeah.
misunderstanding your scale.
Yeah, I think, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be planning for future, right? It could
Mm-hmm.
also be like, what is this providing me in this moment? Like the
Mm-hmm.
transactional side.
And how are those different to feelings? Even if it's providing me money in this moment and that money is making me feel safe. That's where I wonder, is everything not either nothing is a transaction or everything is a transaction for some feelings? And then it's, I guess it's the motivation behind it that matters. If you're using someone to get the feeling and they could be swapped out for a different person, not
Exactly.
good. If you're using someone for the feeling because the feeling is generated by this person in particular, Good.
Right. And I think that's the differentiation right there, is it's like
Mm-hmm.
on the transactional side, it literally doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
like, the person isn't what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's being provided by that person, and they could be easily swapped
Mm-hmm.
out. Right. And then on the
Mm-hmm.
further end, it is this person, and
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing, if they don't provide me anything else except for just
Mm-hmm.
themselves, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're getting philosophical, but I think that's Kant. That's you use people as an ends, not as a means. And I had a hard realization of that just before I met my current girlfriend, actually, where there was a girl I was in a situationship with, a slightly more than some flings, but not by a lot. And it took me a while to realize this, but I'd go out to clubs and whatever and dance and have fun and be like, if I see anyone I'm super interested in, cool, I'll go home with that person. And then if I didn't, I knew I could just give her a message at 3 a.m. and the key would be under a doormat and I could go over and see her. And that, I can't remember if I realized, I think it blew up first. And then I was like, oh, that's what I was doing. That's not good. I don't like that. I don't want to do that again. And like that was a complete example of could be swapped out for another person because that's literally what I was trying to do. If I really wanted to spend time with her, I would have gone and spent time with her. I wouldn't have been out doing stuff. And I think people do this all the time. And I think it's so hard to see because no one wants to think that they're using people. No, if you ask almost anyone, do you use people? They will say no. If you ask them, do other people use people? They'll say, yeah, sometimes. It's, well, so you're the only one that isn't using people, or you're in this tiny little group? I'm like, are you sure you're not lying to yourself? Because, yeah,
Yeah.
it's common and it's such a repulsive thought that we come up with reasons why it isn't the case. And I think if you can see it clearly enough and be like, this was the case, it doesn't end well. And if you saw it was the case earlier, you could see it wouldn't have ended well earlier, and you could have stopped something blowing up in your face or giving you far more stress or whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with using people, as long as
Mm-hmm.
you're upfront about it, and, like, the other person very well very well may be using
Mm-hmm.
you as well, and
Mm-hmm.
either
Mm-hmm.
in the same way or different ways. And I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
there's anything wrong with that in a relationship. Having All relationships are transactional, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so being super upfront about that, and if everyone's in agreement and everyone feels like the relationship is equitable, then, like,
Mm-hmm.
great. I don't know that there's a problem with it, but I think, to your point, a lot of people do it, like, without acknowledging it or having the awareness, or, yeah, and trying to act all high and mighty. But it's, look, yeah, we're usually in relationships because
Mm-hmm.
we want something, right? Even if it's just a feeling or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? Like, we want something from a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree in theory. In
Yes.
practice, what I see many times is this will be from people who claim to be conscious, so they're communicating a lot and these kind of things, and they will do the talk, but either they won't do the walk or they will do the walk and they will ignore when the other person isn't. And then it becomes a situation of, well, okay, if you are, they're saying that what they're saying is, yeah, it's fine, we can just hook up, it's fine. They're saying that, but what they're showing to you is they're actually more interested and they would like a relationship if it was an option and whatever. And you see that and you ignore that. One that is maybe morally bad on you for then essentially you're back into the using them category, maybe. But I think that the bigger thing is that when that happens, these are the situations that blow up. And very often, the chaos caused by the blow up is far more detrimental to your mental health, emotions, whatever, than the goodness of the fling thing was. Because if you don't really care for the person, I don't think the fling can be so amazing as to be worth someone just having a fucking meltdown and now you feel like a dick or you've got to talk to them, and all of these things can happen. And so I think that's the main problem. So it's, yeah, in theory, if everyone's, this is just for fun, and it is, and you're acting that way, and both people are doing that, cool. How often do I see that happening? Close to 0% of the time. I'm sure it's not zero, but I don't think it's hugely far
No.
away.
No, I don't think so either. And there's this whole situationship culture now, or hookup culture, whatever the kids are calling it these days. We're not young and hip anymore, but
Speak for yourself.
yeah, I knew that was
I don't
coming.
know. I don't know. I don't know
I was
any
like,
of it.
I walked right into that. You're older than me, so
I'm cool, Kayla. I'm cool.
that's true. You are.
No, no cap. I'm super cool.
No, what?
Cap? I don't know what it
Oh,
means.
no cap. That's no lie, right?
I have no idea,
Okay.
but I know people say it.
Well, whatever the kids are saying these days, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Even for us, there's hookup
Mm-hmm.
culture, right? Yeah, and it's just not I don't it almost never ends well. Yeah, I've never
Mm-hmm.
seen a situation where it's yeah, this is a great idea and both parties feel like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
good. I also
It's difficult.
okay.
It's difficult because, again, it's, I have this perspective, and I only have this perspective through a long time in relationships and plenty of hookups to see these. But I didn't always see these signs, right? So it's, I think it's super fun to meet someone and hook up that night if you're interested and whatever.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that to have the intuition to know someone you're actually really interested in, to not just be drunk and decide that you want to have sex with someone, so you find someone to have sex with, whoever they are, to, yeah, just to have a good idea of someone you like. There's that. And then it's, well, then if you do have all those things, you might find that there are actually very few people that you're really that attracted to, that you really feel a strong pull towards. And then the problem is, I fucking get this. My ego will be like, oh, maybe I'm not sexy, or maybe I'm not charming, or whatever. And so then that high standard I have for being like, well, I only want to, you know, do something with someone that's like a real yes, even if it's just a fling for a few days. I've had some awesome times where it's been 3 or 4 days, and then the person has left, and it was super fun, great, because I was like, I am into this person. But I meet people like that even when I live in places full of beautiful, awesome women. Like I maybe meet, let's say, maximum 6 a year, maximum. More realistically, once, twice, maybe 3 times a year, I might encounter someone where I'm like, ooh, something about this person's energy is saying, like, fuck yes
Yeah.
to me. And so then, you have to deal, with your ego being like, well, I want to have sex. I feel, and then if you have a hookup, you can feel accomplished. You can feel like, yeah, I'm sexy, I'm manly. I met someone and we had sex, go me. But then it didn't mean anything, and it might have meant something to them. And then so maybe you're like, well, yeah, well, I guess we can have sex 1 or 2 times because it's on a plate, and like, why not? I'll feel good about myself. And then a few hookups down the road, you're like, well, now I need to tell this person I'm actually not interested in you at all. And that's not fun or easy or whatever. And so yeah, it can be tough to balance these things.
Yeah. The intentionality piece definitely
Mm-hmm.
plays a role. I do also think, though, that I have some friends, men, who I would recommend taking if they're interested in someone for a hookup and they know that's all it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of times I would encourage men to do that, especially if they are struggling with confidence,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because, and of course, be honest and upfront and clear from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, be in high
Mm-hmm.
integrity with it. But it's so, so, so important for men, especially, to be in a place of confidence if you are wanting to
Mm-hmm.
meet someone for a long term relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sometimes a few hookups will help get you there. And as long as you're honest
I
and
don't,
open the whole time, then it can
yeah,
work. But
I don't disagree. Like the masculine feeling from that is no joke. You feel fucking great. You feel, I went up to this person and I was charming and I was flirty and I was flirty and charming enough to get them to come home with me or go to their house or whatever. You feel like a fucking rock star afterwards. And so it's like my position comes from having done that lots of times and looked back on that and thought about that. If I hadn't done that lots of times, it wouldn't be something that I could assess properly. And lots of that built up my confidence and all of these kind of things. And I, the 7-year relationship I was in the entire time I was at university. So I didn't get any single experience at university. And then about 6 months after, broke up with her because I was like, what the fuck am I like this? I don't want this. And then was like, God, like was so fucking terrified about, I was like, I don't know how to speak to women. Like, I know how to pick up fucking drunk girls when we're both fucking 15 or 16. Like, 17 to 24, I was in a relationship. I was like, I missed dating. I don't know what a date is. I don't know what to do. This is fucking terrifying. And my solution was, well, maybe if I just get in really good shape, I won't have to do the first part. I won't have to go up to girls and introduce myself because they'll just throw themselves at me. And that didn't work. In fact, even maybe 2 or 3 times I used steroids to get bigger and all unknowingly out of fear of just fucking saying the first thing. I remember when I started traveling, like a friend who must have been 32, 34 at the time, just walks up to a girl and starts saying something to her, and they're laughing and having fun. I remember like several times to people in that situation being like, what did you say? What precisely did you say? As if the problem was I didn't know the intro line, which is completely wrong. It's an energy, it's a self-confidence, it's a whatever. And so it was only through hookups and other things and an extra relationship that I build up that confidence. So I definitely know the value of it. I definitely don't disregard the value of it. I think the problem is just maybe sometimes it can be hard. Like you might have learned the lesson from it, but then you keep doing it because it's easy and it's familiar. And so I think the hard thing can be to say, you know what? I've learned the lessons from this. I don't need to keep doing this because it's not good. I don't need to have sex with a new person once a week or more times a week or once a month or whatever it is, because I feel good about me. I feel good about my confidence. I feel good at my ability to attract whoever I want to attract. So yeah, I think for many men, I'm sure it's valuable. And then I think there should be a point for those men that they get to where they're like, okay, not that hookups are bad, but I should feel something towards someone before I do that, instead of being like, this person seems really interested in me. Okay, well, I guess so. I guess having sex with her is better than
and
going
she's
home
hot
alone.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, she's hot. She's hot enough. And again, and the more alcohol you drink, that the bar for that can drop as well. So
Yeah.
these are just things to
Hmm.
watch out for, I think.
Yeah. Also, I would love to ask you, because we mentioned this earlier, and on the topic of
Mm-hmm.
confidence,
Mm-hmm.
this is a very taboo topic, but I feel like the two of us are equipped to handle it.
spicy.
Consent, and how I think obviously consent is important. And there's a lot of talk in the recent years about how you have to really ask for and get explicit consent every step of the way. But that is so, there are ways in different scenarios that you can make it sexy. But if you're asking for consent about every little thing, it is not hot. And women are attracted to men's confidence and they're like just going for it. So yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a tricky one, because to not ask for consent, as is general, like, you have to really be sure that you understand women or the sex you're interested in, right? Like, you have to understand the signs, and you might need to study that. And these can be body language, or like and there are even many like common things. Is she laughing more than is appropriate at your jokes, right? Does she seem to find you a bit too funny? Normally men are dating shorter women. Is she standing close enough to you that she has to look up at you? Standing within your space, probably a good sign. Is she touching you on the arm or the bicep or whatever a lot? You can learn these kind of signs. And I think the problem comes, especially for young people, where they're terrified about, I don't know, being that HR getting involved or being cancelled or whatever, if they don't ask for consent, because it's like they've never got the experience. Or I'm sure you can, I've just listed off a few there. You can study these things and watch out for them, and then you see them, and maybe you would go for it, but you don't, and you watch these signs a few times, and then you're like, okay, I'm feeling more confident that this is a yes sign and not a no sign. But if you don't know the body language signs, if you don't know these signals, then that's when this asking for consent thing can become important, right? Because I'm sure plenty of examples where men is just completely misread the scenario and then go for it, and the woman's horrified, maybe rightfully so. And it's like, that's where the difficulty is. It is very, I was going to say, it's very rare that I've asked. I did once when I was on a date with someone I really liked, and the date was going on for ages and ages. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, dates don't go on this long if the person isn't interested. It's like we watch the sunset, and then it's like the bars are, it's 11 or 12, the bars are closing or something, and I hadn't kissed her, and I was about to walk away, and I was like, fuck, all right, can I kiss you? It's like, you can, yeah, there's the flip side, right? There's getting stuck in your head about it. And it's, in that case, maybe it is good to just fucking say it, and then at least, right, at least if they're like, yes, I was hoping so. And I think she told me later, obviously it would have been hotter if I just fucking kissed her. And I'm like, yeah, obviously, but it would have been way worse if we didn't kiss at all. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Body language is difficult. We don't get taught this stuff.
No, we don't. And I do think, like, you make a really good point. If you're unsure, then ask. And yeah, a woman like isn't going to hold it against you by any means. If somebody says, "Hey, can I kiss you?" and if I'm a yes, then I'm going to be like, "Yeah." And then I'll think, oh, like, considerate of him to ask, because he obviously wasn't sure and I feel respected. So it's not going to be like bad. It might be hotter if he didn't ask, but it's not, yeah, like going to be like points against or something.
Yeah, I think when you're, generally this is the way it goes around, but it's like when a guy is trying to hone his radar for if someone is interested, then this can be a good fear, a good thing to do. Like asking, like going for it and getting rejected. It's either don't go for it, and then you feel bad because you didn't, and you fucking sat in your head for several hours thinking you should have. You go for it without asking and getting rejected, and that's horrible. Or you ask and get rejected, and it's not good, but it's less bad than going for it and being like, oh God, I misjudged this so poorly. If you don't have a good read on these things, it could be a good idea to ask as you calibrate your radar for what's a sign of yes, I'm interested, and what's a sign for no, I'm not. If she's crossing her arms and looks bored and looks a little nervous or like all of these things. It's like that's not a signal that she's into it.
Right.
And then, but I think I don't know how many times you'd ask with one person as you were progressing. That would seem like you're doing a bad job at seeing these signs. I think if you're consistently, I think if you're asking because you want to seem like a super thoughtful person, then I almost feel like it's not, what is it? It makes me think of a nice guy in the bad way, where it's like you're trying to be nice, but there's some different motivation behind it or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think these days, after Me Too, I've heard from a
Mm-hmm.
lot of younger men, especially, that they like are so nervous. They even
Mm-hmm.
them offering to pay on a date, they're worried that the woman will feel like offended or feel obligated
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
give something in return. And like that's to me, that's crazy, right? I'm like, what? What?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? And so I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of fear in approaching. I think there's a lot of fear in just making a move without consent. And that may
Mm-hmm.
be like from kissing to
Mm-hmm.
whatever, first base, second base. I don't even know what all the bases are. But whatever, right? Like throughout, if like things are heating up and getting like extra hot, then what? I don't know. I don't
I
know.
think if things are heating up and getting extra hot, I personally wouldn't break that moment to be like,
Can I
can we
touch your
fuck now? In
boob?
fact, yeah, can I touch you? Can I touch your boob? Often the girl will ask you, will be like, I am so fucking hot, like hot right now.
Yeah.
Just let's fuck or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Take me.
Take me, yeah. I mean, yeah, and I imagine it's extra difficult with if you're interacting more over the computer and you're seeing people less in person, you have less experience in person, all of these things, like these are all going to compound. If you're meeting people on dating apps, then it's like you're jumping, it's like you've robbed yourself of the opportunity to train that muscle of is someone interested, because they've been at least interested enough to swipe you, message you, go on a date.
Yeah.
So there are many ways to avoid learning these kind of skills. And yeah, so it doesn't surprise me at all.
What do you think? There's been the Me Too movement, there's been
Mm-hmm.
like dating apps. And I feel like right now, dating and relationships in general are a clusterfuck. And
Mm-hmm. I
it
hear.
seems, yeah, lucky for us, that's not the experience we're having, but
Mm-hmm.
love that for us. But what do you think is leading?
I'm pretty set on the prime cause of things being fucked is almost always algorithmically delivered tech. I think governments are fucked as much as they are because of social media. I think dating is primarily fucked because dating apps, it seems like an easier way, right? It's in your pocket. You can just swipe away. I I used to use them, and I don't know how many dates I went on from dating apps. Not a huge amount, but let's say between 10 and 20 or something somewhere in that ballpark on a
Yeah.
dating app. Was actually, this person is really fun. Like I would see that, like I would be interested to see this person again and not just see them again because they've asked. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And I think part of the problem is that, well, there's some statistics which is something like the top 10, or I think it's an 80-20 thing, that the top 20% most attractive guys are competing for the top 80% of women. And so if you're not in the top 20% of attractiveness as on dating apps in your photos or your wit or whatever, then you're competing for the bottom 20% of women. And so this creates weird dynamics, right? Because it's like the women are getting bombarded. They can match with anyone they want, right? They can get 100 matches a day, no problem, right? Whereas the men will be struggling to get matches. And then at the same time, when the men do get matches, very often, I'm sure either consciously or subconsciously, they're going to be thinking like, this person isn't really like, this person isn't really at my standard. But just the disparity of the algorithms and maybe the numbers of men versus women or whatever it is, just how it shakes out. And so it doesn't surprise me that women are constantly saying that they've had these horrible dates on dating apps where this guy sucked or just talked about himself all the time or whatever. And it's because he doesn't think, he thinks he's too good to date you, but he can't date he's a 5 out of 10. He can't match with a 5 out of 10 because the top 20%, the 9s and the 10s out of 10s are matching with 3 to 10. And so it just, you don't think about it, but it just creates this situation where both people lose. Not to mention just the negative effect of you get a match, it's exciting, maybe you message them, maybe they don't message back, maybe you can't be bothered to message back because it's just fun to get matches, to get a little ego boost, to be like, ah, this person liked me, God, I'm so sexy, or whatever. And so I just think if you're relying on those primarily, they're hugely problematic. And like I said before, it cuts out that initial step of seeing someone you like and figuring out like, how do I get talking to this person? How do I meet this person? How do I gauge if they're interested? How do I make things happen? All of that stuff is skipped when you jump straight to the first date. And then with all the negative side effects that come from the weird matching kind of dynamics. So I would tend to blame that as the majority of the problem, and then maybe broader, while still being technological, is like the Me Too type stuff, and why everyone's scared of that is because that gets amplified on social media, right? You hear the stories of the creepy guy or Weinstein or like whatever, like all of this stuff. I don't want to be that person. So it's even on that side of it, it's like lots of people approach many of these things from politics, gender equality, and women can work and all of these things. And I think that's some of it. But for me, I always think technology is far more behind these things, behind almost everything that is happening. I tend to think that tech has a way bigger effect than politics in at least 90% of cases.
Interesting.
My theory.
Yeah. Okay. I don't disagree. I haven't really evaluated whether I think tech has a bigger impact than politics or other things, but I do think that dating apps have heavily contributed to the dating and relationship crisis for a number of reasons. Yeah, for anyone listening, if you use dating apps, delete them. Get off of them. They're not helping you.
Go outside.
Outside.
Find the people that you're interested in and go and do the things they do. When I was when I would live in Bali, I would I like spirity, yoga, relaxed people. So I would go to classes, but specifically classes that would have some sort of partner element. So an acro yoga class or a handstand class. And so you can turn up, if you see someone you like, when they need a partner to support so they don't fall on their face, you can be like, oh, hey, do you want to partner up? Like, it's not difficult if you put in some thought, if you know what, the problem can be is like if you know what the kind of girl you like, and then you just go out to a nightclub and you're like, I keep meeting all these girls I fucking hate at nightclubs. And it's like, maybe the problem is the nightclubs. Maybe you need to go where the people you like actually are.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah. I was just running through my dating history for a minute in my head, thinking about where I've met people and yeah. Maybe an exercise for another time. But love that you just sparked that idea for me. Yeah, I do. I really like that concept though. And yeah, go where there's people you want to meet, either as a romantic partner or as
Mm-hmm.
friends. If you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
friends, like what kind of people do you want to spend time with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you've been in relationships also, and you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that personally like one of your biggest struggles in dating and relationships was learning to rely on on your intuition and really trusting and being in the moment
Mm-hmm.
and being super intentional
Mm-hmm.
rather than following a checklist or using people for short-term gain or
Mm-hmm.
like just accepting what comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything else that you personally like think either for yourself or that you see men really struggling with in in the dating crisis specifically?
I like go to a lot of men's circles, and so I'm trying to think what comes up. All the time, it is people that just haven't been in any long-term relationships, and they get to their mid-30s or whatever, and they're just completely clueless about the things that you're forced to learn being in a relationship for a long time.
Yeah.
Communication, or even just an understanding of what you do and don't like really strongly. Men not feeling strong or powerful or whatever. Like I hear that a good amount. Do some sort of martial art, go do MMA or jiu-jitsu or whatever. Yeah, like this is one that it's hard for me to put myself in those shoes because I grew up in a rough place, got in lots and lots and lots of street fights, and also did lots of martial arts and these things. So it's very rare for me to feel unsafe, but I've definitely heard numerous men say this. And yeah, I think if there's any kind of masculine trait you want, it's to feel capable of handling things. And that doesn't mean that you need to be capable of handling a fight if one breaks out, but it trickles down, right? If you know what it really feels like to be in danger and deal with it, or you know what your body does when someone punches you in the face, it makes it a whole lot easier not to get rattled when someone says something to you that you don't like. Because you're like, I'm not in danger. And ego as it could be, you're no threat to me. You couldn't hurt me if you wanted to. And that can, I think men would be surprised at how far that can go into just giving you a confidence to do things. And so, yeah, there are classes all around the world for it. If you don't want to get punched in the face, then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very good, very fun, very technical, and yeah, it's intellectually stimulating. But I would really recommend some of that. Working out, going to the gym is good. It might make you overconfident in your ability to handle yourself in a physical alteration, even though that, they're unlikely to happen. So I would watch that. Being in good shape, feeling strong. Yeah, I think just feeling capable is a very powerful masculine emotion. Feeling like there's something you want to do and going and doing it is very good. And so are overweight, then start running and get in shape or whatever. Have a list of things in your mind that you have accomplished so you're capable, and that will infuse everything else you do. I think that's super important.
So interesting how different we are as men and women. I love that though. It's such good advice for men. And I have heard that from a lot of men that feeling capable and competent to handle
Mm-hmm.
situations, yeah, is like everything. Okay. Well,
It's a shock. It's a shocking amount.
yeah. And I will say, as a woman, that is one of the most attractive qualities in a man is when not uh, the way he feels about it, but how we
Mm-hmm.
perceive a man's level of
Mm-hmm.
competence is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like it creates so much safety for us.
Mm-hmm.
And as the weaker, smaller and weaker gender,
Mm-hmm.
that is, yeah, obviously something that we really value. So, and look for in partners.
Even even just you'd be surprised at how much this can make a difference. The competence to solve mundane problems right? Like
Mhm.
instead of just the bike isn't working and you try to figure out how to make it work, or something breaks or something isn't working and you come up with you duct tape together some sort of solution that fixes the problem. I'm talking manual household type things. I think that falls into this category as well. And I've even heard women saying and men saying when they're like, I have no idea how to fix anything. And it's so these are opportunities not to miss, right? To try to fix some shit, try to make something. This gets into the masculine feminine thing, right? Like I certainly believe we have differences on average, and there are certain things that are very stereotypically male, and like women are way better at making friends and keeping relationships. And men like to play with things and break things and fix things. And so lean into that. And it's even if you are more feminine as a man and don't feel like doing those things or don't know how to do those things, if you learn to do those things, people will think you're more masculine, and that might attract the women you like more. And you probably also feel more masculine because there's some little part of your brain that's make tool, kill elephant with men.
Totally. Totally. I think that is a really great exercise for most men to just, it's not that hard. If I can do it, you can do it. Okay. I'm like
And you
the,
really don't want your girlfriend to do it before you do it. So you do it, try to do it first.
right, right. And Connor, you can speak to this. I think I'm competent, but like
Mm-hmm.
when it comes like fixing the
Mm-hmm.
things. It's not like
Mm-hmm.
I'm this big, strong, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I live in the clouds a little. And yet, because I grew up with a stay-at-home dad, you bet your
Mm-hmm.
ass I know how to change my oil. I know how to change a
Mm-hmm.
tire. I have a
Mm-hmm.
little like toolkit in my like other
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
bedroom. And like I know how to do basic things because it was
Mm-hmm.
important to my dad to teach them
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, if I can do those things, men, you can learn to do them. And trust me, I don't like doing them. And I will definitely not do them if anyone else wants to do them for me, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not jumping at the opportunity by any stretch of the imagination. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it does mean a lot to women. And yeah, there is apparently something in your brain that wants to do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. People talk all the time about these uh, structural inequalities, and that's why there's more men in some areas and more women in some areas. And I'm sure there's some effect of that. But it's even in incredibly equal countries, it's like engineering, computer science, mathematics. They're still full of guys, and it's like why? Because guys more often like to solve problems and do these things by themselves. And women more often like to do relational things between people. And as a man, maybe that gives you the advantage where because we live in a technological society, you're going to end up making some more money, but you're also way more likely to kill yourself, assumedly because you're lonely, die younger, again, maybe because you have fewer good friends. Many men I know past 30 don't actually have any friends. They might say they do, but it's they chat to them a little every year or two or whatever. And so it's yeah, you make more money, but at the expense of, on average, more misery and loneliness. If I had to guess.
Yeah, it's interesting how it plays out. And I do think that is a way that we can help men or support them is in
Mm-hmm.
relationally. Is yeah, that is something else I've heard from a lot of men is how lonely it feels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Like I had to work really hard at having good guy friends. Like I don't have any good I don't have any good friends from pre-travel,
yeah.
really. So 25 onwards, the last 7 years is where I've made all my good friends, and I've made a point to be like, I need to keep in touch. Like I need to make the effort with these people. When I found people that the same with my girlfriend. I'm like, when I meet people that actually just feel good. I was having some drama with a friend who didn't make me feel good, and cut them out. And as this was happening, I was on a bike trip with two other good friends, and I was just like comparing these two. I'm like, there is nothing difficult about hanging out with these other two friends. It's just easy. There's no trauma or anything. And yeah, those are the types of friends, like that feeling of just being like, nothing is difficult about this. Not to say that my friends don't have their own problems, but I'm like, their problems are fine. I know what they are. I can account for them. This one's never going to be on time, or whatever. This one's going to be a bit anxious, or whatever it might be. It's fine. It feels, they're easy to be with, and we fit together in a good way. And that's not easy. That took a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you have that with other men. It's so important. It's really important. And I think it's just really rare.
I think something that has increased my friendship, and this might be a good thing for men to do, is contrive, if you must, some sort of structure where you regularly meet with your man friends. I do an accountability call with two friends almost every Monday, and have done for several years. And it's just that, forcing the interaction and the familiarity with each other's lives and what's going on and all of this stuff. I think men are bad at just hanging out for the sake of hanging out, right? Like you think
Right.
of the stereotype, normally they meet up to watch the game, or you go to play golf, or you go to play pool at a
There's always
bar
an
or something.
activity.
There's an activity, yeah. And so
Yes.
if you're struggling to maintain or deepen friendships with your guy friends, contrive something where you meet up to do a thing. That, I think that can be a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great tip. Is there anything else? I feel like we've bounced around a lot, but we've covered some really interesting things. Is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap up?
The only last one I was pondering on, and I guess it ties into a few things, is like the hyper masculine pullback
Mm,
that
yeah.
I'm seeing, reversal of young guys wanting, again, more intensely to get rich, be flashy, sleep with all the girls, make the money, pay for everything, get a nice little virgin housewife. Um, like I get it, because some stages of doing that, and it's part of this is what I did, right? Part of this was I had these things that I was like, if I can just do these, the bargain I was making to myself unknowingly was like, if I can just do these, I'll be eternally happy, right? I was just thinking, if I make a bunch of money, if I start traveling, and if I date a hot Latina, I'll be happy forever. Now,
Mhm.
the third one did happen unknowingly, but I hit these stages and was like, oh, this doesn't feel how I want. But it's very easy not to observe that, and so I get why this is attractive for people, because like this is like forcing you into becoming capable, right? Grind
Yeah.
away, make a business, make something of yourself. Like that, it feels good. It feels very motivating to do stuff and get momentum, and all of these things. I think the problem is it's like solving for a world that doesn't exist anymore, right? It's solving for a world where women have to be the stay-at-home moms, right? And I'm sure you can meet plenty of women that would like to be a stay-at-home mom, but also plenty of women might like to work and have their own ambitions and want to do their own things. And what if that's actually the type of woman that you like, and you don't know that you like this type of woman because you're fucking 18 and you never met a bunch of women to have some idea of what actually attracts you. So yeah, I think it can be risky, and it's obviously it's attractive for a reason, right? It can't all be bad, else it wouldn't be attractive. But I think where it leads is unhappiness, and yeah, ending up with a partner who is more likely to be uh, uh, a means than an ends in themselves. You're more likely to have a unfulfilled relationship. I think if you're not that there's anything wrong with being the provider and paying for everything, but if you're so focused on I must be that, then that ego tie-up, it seems like it can lead you astray, and many other things where there are so many ways that this can go wrong. So maybe take the useful things, i.e. fucking make something of yourself, do things, learn, grow, prove your value to the world in a demonstration of what you can do and the value you can provide. And then don't get too fucking wrapped up in I'm the man, I must do the man things.
Yeah.
Maybe that's you,
Yeah.
maybe it's not.
Exactly. Find who you are first and
Mm-hmm.
then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, go from there instead of. I also think that can be said for the other end of the spectrum. I think there's a lot of men who are becoming hyper feminine because they think that's what women want, right? Because a lot of women are
Mm-hmm.
saying how they want someone who's really expressive and emotional. And
Mm-hmm.
but you can be emotional and in touch with your feelings or have emotional intelligence and also not be expressive. And
Yeah.
so the expression part is what's the feminine aspect. Having emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
is not masculine or feminine. It's just a good life skill to
Mm-hmm.
have for everyone.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah, I agree.
expression of those, like being super
Mm-hmm.
expressive, is very feminine. And I think a lot of men
Mm-hmm.
are younger, especially, are
Mm-hmm.
really leaning into that because they think that's what women
Mm-hmm.
want. But maybe that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel authentic for them. Or maybe that's also then attracting maybe not the type of women that they actually want to be with. Or,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So basically, it sounds like moral of the story is figure out who the fuck you are and how you want
Mm-hmm.
to show up in the world. Also,
Mm-hmm.
date around, see what you like, see what you
Mm-hmm.
don't, test it out,
Yeah.
see what's a good fit.
Yeah, I think the problem with both of these overly masculine is that it's just simple. And people like simple, but nothing in life is everything is complex, right? And so some of this is good, some of this is bad, some of this is good now and will keep being good now for some time and then it'll be bad. And some of like I'm used to in when I was living in Bali the last time, I lived in Ubud in the kind of spiritual eat, pray, love place. And that's full of men that are so conscious. Namaste. Oh, can we connect? Oh, and they're being
Let me
soft, but
stare deeply into your eyes.
yeah, exactly. And we're gonna hug for 20 minutes, and it's so often a game. I've also been to men's circles tens of times, if not more, in that place with these very same men saying very different things when they're in these men's circle where either the act consciously drops or it's bullshit and they're insecure. It's insecure and they're not. It's not the authentic them. It's a show they're putting on because they think it'll work. And sometimes women think that's what they want as well. And so men can get success doing this, but many women I hear, they're like, well, I dated a few people like this, and I actually realized that's not how I'm feeling. And so I went there and was like, I'm just going to be normal, masculine me.
Yeah.
Very successful strategy. So yeah, I think it can just I don't know. I don't know if there's a problem in if you're a man being very feminine, maybe it's fine. But there's definitely a problem when you're putting on this show where you're trying so hard to be conscious and thoughtful, and it's a little bit creepy. And just fucking be you. Just stop caring what people think. And if they don't like you, there's fucking 4 billion women in the world. There's lots of women. There's lots of men. Just be you, and by being you will attract the people that fit with you, because they
Yeah.
won't know they won't know they'll fit with you if they don't actually know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, and don't hug for 20 minutes, it's too long.
Should we just end it there?
Anything you take away, guys, 20 minutes is too long to hug.
Specifically to hug, just for hugging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you're meditating, when you exhale, you don't always have to exhale with a moan. Sometimes fine, but not always. It's okay to not always do it. That's all I got.
Thanks for being here with me today, Connor. This was really fun, and I really appreciate you.
No worries. Thanks for having me. This has been delightful. Thank you, Kevin.